We're riding through the dark night. We're half a tank and empty heart. Pretending we're in love, but it's never enough. As the silence fill the lonely air. Oh, how did we get here now? We see a storm is closing in. Pretending we.
Okay, so to start off, I think I want to do my face first this time, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go in with some moisturizer. This is I always forget the name of this, the Lancome. It's in French, but I'll put it in the bottom. And I just love how it's super moisturizing and has SPF and just makes my skin really smooth. I find whenever I take the time to really hydrate my skin with like lotions and stuff, my foundation just applies so much better. So that's what I'm gonna do, give myself a little massage at the same time. And now I'm gonna take a little bit of primer. I'm gonna take the Smashbox Photo Finish. This is like the original one, and just put that in my T-zone so that I don't look shiny, because this lotion is pretty hydrating and I don't want to look oily. And this is typically where I will get shiny if I were to get hot. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of that in the center and then spread it out. I haven't used this primer in forever. I feel like it was like the main primer back in the day. And it is really good. It's just forgot about it and I have so many others, but yeah, I've just been using it again lately. All right, so now that is on. As you saw, I pretty much did like center of my forehead and just like a little bit around my brows. This area here, just like my T-zone, and then around my nostrils and around my mouth. So I want to look like supple and hydrated and plump and glowy, but I don't want to look sweaty. So I feel like if I have those areas mattified, then we're good to go. So for foundation, I'm going to use this one by Bite Beauty. This is the first foundation I've ever had by them, and it is their Changemaker Supercharged Micellar Foundation. I'm not even too sure what that's supposed to mean, because the only thing that I know of that's micellar is my makeup remover. But I will say, first of all, it matches me really well. This is shade T105. So that's like a huge plus, because I don't feel like I have my exact match in every foundation line, and that's usually like hit or miss for me and kind of what makes me use the foundation or not, because I'm just like not gonna buy 2 and 3 and like try and mix them up every time. So if I have like a perfect match, depending on what my skin tone is at the time in that line, then I'm definitely gonna get it. And then on top of that, the actual formula is really nice. It is very lightweight, but still full coverage, and it's still a foundation. It's not like a BB cream or CC cream or anything like that. So I'm gonna do my usual. I'm just going to spread a thin layer on with the brush first, and then go over it with a beauty blender. And even though I'm spreading like a thin layer, sometimes I put a little bit more than what I want, because I know that the sponge is gonna pick them up. So to avoid it looking patchy or like having the foundation lift once I go over it, I just put a little bit more than I normally would if I were to be using a brush. And I know I say this like every video, but if you haven't watched any of my other videos, I just like to do this because I feel like I get the best results. It just places the foundation wherever I need it and kind of like does all the heavy lifting. And then with my sponge, I just kind of set it in place, and I feel like it just gives the best finish. And now I'm just gonna take my clean beauty blender and just go over everything. And then I always take whatever's left at the end and move it like onto my nose, because I just hate having a lot of foundation on my nose. So that's just my preference, but you can do it however you want. Okay, so now that that's on, I feel like it actually looks really lightweight today. I don't know if it like even picks up on camera, and maybe it's because I have all the lights on today, but I almost am like, should I go in with another layer? Because it looks too much like my skin, but I feel like that's the whole point. It at least evened out my skin. But yeah, it's really nice. It's really lightweight. And what I love about it is it doesn't look like you have foundation on your skin whatsoever, but it still gives you coverage. So check it out if you like that type of coverage. I've been really liking it and I've been using it pretty regularly. So. And then for concealer, I'm still in my Nars pot concealer phase. So, excuse me, that is what I'm gonna use. And I'm just gonna put it on with a brush and blend it out with my sponge like my foundation. And then I'm gonna take my favorite e.l.f. sponge for my under eye and blend that out. I don't really have to let this sit because it is like a thick cream, so I'm just gonna blend it out right away. And then my usual for my under eye, the Becca Hydra Mist Set and Refresh Powder. And since this powder is so light and hydrating, which I know sounds weird for a powder, I'm just going to set down my T-zone as well. And then I like to set the rest of my face with a different type of powder that's, I guess, technically a little heavier. It's just I wouldn't want to put it like under my under eyes. So I always use this for my under eyes and like my nose and stuff. And then I will use that powder for my face. And that powder is usually one of 3 powders, either the e.l.f. finishing powder, the Elcie setting powder, or like I'll mix them, or the Huda powder. What I find works the best and gives me like the most bulletproof finish is if I do one of these 2 or together, but do like a thin layer and kind of like layer it. So I like to set it now and then I set it after my bronzer as well. And I feel like it just holds everything into place and it just looks so flawless and smooth. So that is what I'm gonna do today. I'm just gonna take a little bit of both. This on its own is really good too. So if you don't happen to have the Elcie one, this one I know is like a little easier to get. I was actually really impressed by it because, you know, e.l.f. like, I'm like, e.l.f. like a finishing powder, but someone used it on me and it worked really well. And ever since then, I've just been buying them nonstop. And it's super cheap, it's like $6. So I just swirl in there and then I take a little bit of the Elcie finishing powder, which is also a really beautiful powder. It's just at a higher price point and it just kind of looks like that. And I just kind of swirl the 2. And then I just buff over everything except my under eyes and the middle of my face. Just so my foundation stays in place and so that my bronzer goes on a lot more smoothly. And the difference with these, which is what I really like about them, are the fact that they are setting powders or finishing powders. They're not powdered foundations because you can set your foundation with that, but it's like putting on 2 layers of foundation in just 2 different forms, like a liquid and then a powder. And that can look really heavy really quickly and just honestly doesn't look flattering. So if you want to set your foundation, but you don't want to add another layer of powder foundation, then try a setting powder. I feel like I never knew of setting powders up until a couple years ago, and I never used powders because I'm always thinking that it was just like a powdered foundation and I just didn't like how that looked. So yeah, if you're in that same boat, try that and I think that you will really like it because you get like the mattifying setting effect but not extra coverage. So now that we look like a blank canvas, I think I'm gonna move to my eyes and then we'll go back to face. Okay, so to set my eyes today, I'm not gonna use concealer. I'm actually gonna use a base. This is the Louise base. I've used it before. I feel like I forget that I have it, so I'm trying to use it a little bit more regularly. And this is in the shade Rumour 3. And as you can see, I'm just kind of like messily putting it on. And I'm kind of putting a slightly generous amount of it on because I want it to be pretty opaque. I think I'm choking on the powder in the air. And I also want to make sure that it doesn't get lifted when I blend it with a sponge after. So I know this looks crazy right now, but it will come together. And I'm gonna just really lightly set it with more of that Becca powder so that it doesn't crease. So for eyeshadow, I'm gonna use the Topaz Obsessions palette by Huda. I feel like this is a perfect fall palette. It's just so pretty. It has a lot of like warm, earthy colors, but there's not a lot of neutral transition tones. So I'm going to just grab some shades out of this palette. This is just a Zoeva matte palette that has very similar type of tones, like very earthy, rich, warm type of tones. And I'm just gonna take the neutrals out of that and then use the rest in the Huda palette. I'm gonna take this color right here. It's called Eerily Empty, and just buff that all over my crease. And I really want this to look really dramatic, but soft at the same time. And I like stuff that's like really blown out. So if you see me like all the way out here, and when I do my under eyes, I'm probably gonna blend it down pretty far. That is the reason. And I feel like it always looks crazy before it looks good. And once you finish the eyes and, you know, put the lashes on and stuff, then it looks a lot better. So yeah, I'm just focusing on blending it. And that's why I'm using like dense but fluffy brushes and really trying to build up the color but also blend it out versus being super precise on the actual area that I'm putting it on. And I'm going to take one more shade from this palette. This is called Cheap Bar. It's like a warm maroon shade, and then in my crease. And I'm just kind of keeping this lower than the shade before and just hugging my eyeball and following the curve with the brush. It just adds so much warmth. As you can tell, this is a pretty warm tone, and it just adds some definition to my eye socket. Makes them look hopefully a little bigger than they are. And then same with this side. Okay, I feel like that looks pretty good for the most part. We can always like touch it up later, but it's like a nice warm base. So now I'm gonna take more of that pillowy space and this really tiny brush from Morphe. This is like M213, and slightly recarve out my eyelid, but only halfway, so like half cut crease, just so that it looks more defined. And okay, so I just added some more of that base from before and just kind of focused it on the inner half of my eye up to like the middle of my eyeball. I kind of got a little messy on the end because I'm gonna blend that out anyway, so I feel like it doesn't really matter. And I'm gonna just set that with this kind of like light cream. Okay, I know it looks crazy, but now that that is on and set, I'm going to go in with this shade right here and just blend out where the end of that like harsh cut crease is. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is run like a brown liner on mostly the outer half of my eyelids. So I'm going to put down a base again. So I'm going to use this Inglot Gel Liner number 90. And then I'm going to go over top of that with this little brown shade right here just to soften it up. So now I'm gonna take this like terracotta-ish color. I feel like it's not really picking up the way it looks in person on camera. And I'm going to buff a generous amount of that under my lower lash line. Okay, and then lastly, I'm gonna take this brown shade again and run that pretty close to my lash line and just bringing it from the outer corner up into like the center. Okay, I'm back, so let's finish off the face. I'm gonna apply some mascara as usual, Milk Makeup Kush Mascara. And I'm gonna apply falsies today, so I'm gonna do a little less than 500 coats today. But I'm still gonna do a generous amount because the falsies are pretty light. And if these baby hairs are driving you nuts, they're driving me nuts also. I shouldn't have taken my headband off, but I was trying to look a little bit more presentable. And they're just all over the place. These are the lashes that I'm gonna use. They are in the style Rukus by Crown Moiety. I've used them before. I just really like how piecey and light they are. And they have a really thin band, which is perfect for me. Oh, and also I'm using the House of Lashes lash glue, and the reason why I mentioned this is I find this to be like super glue, like way stronger than the duo glue. It is a little pricier, I think it's like $12, but I think if you are a regular lash wearer or you have trouble with your falsies coming off, try that one. I feel like it really sticks. Like I actually have to like tug to get it off. Usually I use like micellar water to loosen it up, but if I don't and like I just pull at them, it's like glued on there, like they're not going anywhere. Okay, so almost done with eyes. The last thing I want to add is this eyeliner by Pixie. It's in the shade Matte Sienna, and it's just a really pretty rich orange color. I'm going to put that in my waterline. Okay, so I realized you probably didn't see much in that footage because my mirror was so close to my face, but it's like one of those, either you see what I'm doing or I see what I'm doing, and with eyeliner, I feel like it's best that I see what I'm doing. But anyways, I just put this in my waterline. It's like a sienna color. It's so pretty. It's so like thick and creamy and pigmented. These Pixie pencils actually remind me a lot of the Marc Jacobs ones. They're so pigmented. I mean, they're from the drugstore and they're a lot more affordable than the Marc Jacobs one. After I got this one, I was so impressed by it. I got like the maroon one and the navy one, and they're just so nice. But anyways, with this, I just feel like it adds like a nice pop of color, but in a really subtle, nice way. So that's why I like doing this. Okay, so now back to the face. I feel like I look very flat and one-dimensional, so I'm gonna do some bronzer, blush, highlight, you already know the deal, and then lips, and then we'll be done. And for bronzer, I'm gonna use my usual Elcie bronzer, but I'm going to add in a touch of the Morphe one. This one is a lot deeper, and so I just add a little bit of that into the Morphe one. I mean, into the Elcie one. And then like I mentioned before, I'm going to add another thin layer of finishing powder over my bronzer just to soften the look and give it a more diffused effect. And it just also makes everything like stay in place. It also just tones down the bronzer just slightly and kind of makes your blending process a little easier because it just looks more diffused and it looks more like your face is really contoured and you're tan versus like, you know, you have like a layer of bronzer on. So just add a little bit of that. Okay, so for blush, I'm gonna use this one by L'Oreal True Match in the shade Sweet Ginger. I'm actually gonna use 2 blushes, of course. I feel like I'm using like 2 of every product. I just have so much makeup that I just can't help it, and I feel like I get such a better effect when I use less amounts but of multiple products, and it just gives me like a result that I'm like, I can't get this from just one product, so I have to be extra. So I'm gonna put this on, and then I'm gonna use my Burt's Bees one on top of that. And I always go a little heavier with the blush because it is the first thing to fade. So, gotta go a little heavier. And then the Burt's Bees blush, this is in Toasted Cinnamon. This one is so light and it just, if anything, doesn't really add a lot of color, but it adds a nice sheen, which I think just looks so pretty. So I'm gonna put this on. And I want to make sure I get this on like the tops apples of my cheeks so that when I smile, it looks glowy. I know this is not meant to be a cheek topper, but I feel like it kind of serves the purpose of one, so yeah. And then I'm gonna use my ColourPop powder. I forgot the name of this, I'll put it in the description, for my nose contour. Just lightly define the edge of my nose. I'm not trying to change the shape at all, but I just like to add some more definition and structure so that it doesn't get lost in my face. And I feel like it just makes my nose look a little bit more defined. And then I just make sure to meet it up into my eyebrow so that it looks like a natural structure in my face versus 2 stripes down the side of my nose. And it's okay if you can see it. I like to make sure that there is some warmth in there, but obviously like in daylight or whatever, I don't want it to be like obvious that I have like 2 stripes down my nose. But what I do is I go in, put it where I want, and then go over with powder and diffuse it down, and then it's just like perfect. I'm just gonna use that e.l.f. powder from before in a big fluffy brush and just lightly go over it. Instant nose job. So now for highlight, I'm gonna go in with the Bare Minerals highlight in the shade Free. All the usual areas. I'm gonna bring this down to my cheeks again so that I just look glowier when I smile and it doesn't look so highlighty, it just looks like a glow. Okay, so then what I like to do, which I feel like this is the most subtle thing, but it makes such a big difference, is add a holographic highlighter. I never realized how underrated holographic highlighters are. I was like, I'd never put like a green or blue or pink highlight on my face. I just feel like that wouldn't look good. And then once I got this one, this one is the Kat Von D one. I use this pink opal one, and it's, again, it doesn't even look pink in the pan. None of these look like anything. They look like chalk, basically. And I just add a touch of this onto where I highlighted. And it probably isn't like gonna show up pink or anything in person or on camera, but it just adds like a pink iridescence. I can't even explain it, but it's such a wearable pink highlight. And when you have all these like pinks going on, it looks so, so pretty. So I feel like this really just takes it to another level. I don't think that it's really gonna show up on camera, to be honest. Yeah, I just feel like it has like a very ethereal, like alien type of look. I don't know, I feel like I'm going to space, but I'm into it and I think it looks so pretty, and it just takes your regular highlight up a notch and it just kind of pulls everything in together. Like you have those like pink tones in like your highlight, but as well as like your eyes and stuff. So, all right, so to set all this in and get all these powders to melt together, I'm gonna use the Huda setting spray. I know this reeks. I literally hold my breath when I spray it and like walk away from where I sprayed it because it stinks so bad. But I swear this is like super glue in a bottle, and whenever I wear full glam or I know I'm gonna be in the heat or I really, really want it to last, I'll use this over the Urban Decay one, or I'll even mix the Urban Decay one, because let's be for real, why would I just use one product when I can use 3 of the same thing? So yeah, I'm gonna spray this and try not to choke and die at the same time. It has such an aggressive spray as well. It's not like a fine mist. This and a continuous mist like the Morphe one would just be perfect. All right, home stretch, lips, and then we're done. For lips, I'm gonna line my lips with the Marc Jacobs lip liner in the shade Oh Cocoa. And then I'm gonna go in with the Too Faced Melted Matte in Cool Girl. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of the Fenty Gloss Bomb in Diamond Milk and just kind of like blot it in the center. It'll just give like a nice sheen. All right, guys, we're done. Finally, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed the look, and I will see you next time. Bye.